without further ado, you, good
I will
sir, are
be
on the clock.
I'll be selecting Ashton Jeanty, and I'll be running to the board to do so. So we're not here to debate who should be the Heisman. I think that's a much more nuanced conversation that goes beyond stats. And if you go on Twitter, that's all people will talk about is box score stats. And I think that's just below us all at this point. But Ashton Jeanty, speaking of the box score stats, has certainly been lighting them up this year. Nearly 2,300 yards. He is inching closer and closer to Barry Sanders' record. 28 rushing touchdowns, 7.3 yards per carry, nearly 20 receptions. He really does have it all. You know, the box score numbers aren't necessarily there for the receiving side of things, but is graded pretty highly among experts so far in the pass game. Boise State, as you could tell, is more of a handed off to Jeanty 35 times type of team. So he does have the hands there. I do believe that he's going to be able to take that to the next level. And because the other parts of his game were so strong, you're going to want him in there in all phases. He's going to be involved in the pass catching phase of things as a running back. And I saw a good video from Ray Garvin. I think I maybe need to curb the term generational prospect a little bit more. But if there is a generational prospect in this class or in the last couple of classes, it is Ashton Jeanty. If there's going to be anybody to break that mold, he's incredible. You look at his explosiveness, his rushing instinct, which I think is way more important. We see how much that's helped a guy like Bucky Irving. And as the zone run scheme becomes more popular, getting guys into open space, that elusiveness, that instinctiveness for a running back is going to be all the more important. Someone is going to take Ashton Jeanty. It might be the Raiders or Cowboys and give him 20 plus touches a game. And I will be there as many shares as I possibly can.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys would just be the wet dream of a spot for him.
Oh, yeah.
Or you said that the Raiders would be great too. Maybe the Broncos, given the state of their backfield, if
Absolutely.
they just decide if I mean, and Sean Payton's there, and my comp for Ashton Jeanty is Alvin Kamara, just based on the contact balance that you see on tape. To me, it's going to be really hard. I know we have a long way to go.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be really hard for me to move him out of the number 1 overall spot, even in Superflex. I know,
right?
Yeah, I know we've talked about that, so I'll leave it there, and I'll transition to my pick.
Right before the 102. Sorry, one last thing.
No, go for it.
You know who's on pace for the number 1 pick right now? That's probably going to have a new coaching staff and may want to re-roll on their struggling running back that hasn't ever truly broken the mold in the NFL. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh, they would not take him. You're talking like second round, right?
Second round, top of the second round.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if he's going to last that long.
I don't know I do not think he'll last that long. I do not know if he's going to last that long. But
yeah,
even if they traded back up into the first round again, something I don't even think would be smart. But just picture a world where they move on from ETN and a new coaching staff and Ashton Jeanty being the running back behind Trevor Lawrence. That'd be pretty cool.
That would be. I like that idea. They have a lot of holes though, so I don't know. But I will be taking Tet McMillan, and to me, I don't know if I have to say much that hasn't already been said. Mm-hmm. A big wide receiver that is fast enough. We have him at 4.5, 40-yard dash, according to a website that we look at. Draft Buzz is what he had. We won't know what these guys run until they hit the combine, but fast enough, great after the catch ability, pretty good hands. I mean, pretty versatile wide receiver, like in the short, intermediate, deep threat. I mean, they use them a lot after the catch in those types of situations. So Tet McMillan to me is quite, I mean, to me right now, I would debate putting Jeanty in his own tier, but right now I would probably say, and I haven't done the work on this to put guys into tiers yet, but to me, Tet McMillan and Ashton Jeanty are definitely in a tier of their own for me, just based on what I've seen initially. So it's a pretty easy pick at 2. I'll throw back to you to either comment on that or to make your third selection.
No, I
Or your
completely.
second
Yeah,
selection,
third
pick
pick.
3. Yeah, third pick
Uh,
overall.
no, I completely agree there. We actually have, spoiler alert for the listeners, we have the same 1 through 5 right now.
Oh,
In
let's
terms of our
gotcha.
rankings, I don't know how long that's going to stay in one QB, but I know we differ a lot more in Superflex. But number 3 for both of us, the receiver, the corner, Travis Hunter. I do believe he's the Heisman. And I fully believe that he will be playing primarily receiver in the NFL. It is a little wish casting. I will happily admit that, because I think he's an extremely talented receiver. And, receivers are getting paid the big bucks. It's the flashy position right now. And we talked in the last mock draft on how I really could see a much bigger benefit to a team for Travis Hunter being a starting wide receiver in a special package, potentially slot corner or special package pass situation, cornerback that's playing, maybe 20% of the defensive snaps along with the offensive snaps, because it would be potentially criminal not to utilize him on the defensive end with how good he is. But ultimately, I would be shocked if he's not playing large amount of snaps at the receiver position at the next level. He's flashing at Colorado, and I know there's going to be a lot of people that want to dive into the box score numbers with Travis Hunter, and I understand. We'll have a better look when we start seeing things like College Dominator rating and some of these metrics that we like more than the box score numbers. But one thing I noticed about Shedeur or a couple of things. He does not ever have a lot of time to throw. So as a college quarterback, one that's going to succeed in the NFL, you have to be able to spread the ball around, make the read, and get the ball out of your hands. And we saw a lot of that with Caleb Williams at USC. Not a lot of good O-line play, didn't necessarily hone in on one guy, albeit he didn't have a Travis Hunter. But it's more of a quarterback thing and an offensive thing than it is Travis Hunter not being able to garner 30% of the targets in Colorado. So incredibly talented, going to be a top 15, 14 NFL draft pick. And he's going to be in a situation where he's going to start. And that's just a recipe for fantasy success right there.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. And the only reason that he's not ranked ahead of Tet McMillan is if he were an exclusive wide receiver and we didn't have all this, won't he play corner at the next level conversation. I know some people will say in the comments, and it's fair. I think it's a fair point. Oh, I can't take a chance on a guy who might play quarterback. One of the comments I read is I'm not throwing away a season, meaning you got the 3rd overall pick in the rookie draft to select a guy who might not even play on the offensive side of the ball. I think he's going to, because I think an NFL team is going to look at what he's done, especially this year where, you said that the counting stats weren't there, and this year they are there. It's 1,100 yards, 14 touchdowns. I have a hard time believing, and this is just an educated guess, I don't have any inside information, that a team would not utilize him primarily as a wide receiver in the offensive NFL. I that doesn't mean they won't use him as a corner, and I get it. That's just my opinion right now. It could change based on information because we have to shift with the changing of the the tide or the shifting landscape. As information comes out, that opinion might change, but as of right now, I would have a really hard time seeing him not primarily used as a wide receiver. Like I said, doesn't mean he won't play corner too. For my 4th pick, I think we're going to go back to the running back position. And again, Matt said this, we're pretty lockstep with our first 5. So I'm going to pick Omarion Hampton. Again, the production, I think, kind of speaks for itself. Back-to-back seasons of just elite production at North Carolina. And I just, the more I dig into the tape, the more I start to look at these players, the more I think Omarion Hampton solidifies himself as the RB2. I know Kaleb Johnson's having a great year. Trust me, I saw the tweets about the pass, the only touchdown that Iowa scored against Nebraska. was Kaleb Johnson, just an insane play. It reminded me of an Ashton Jeanty run, actually, which is just how good Ashton Jeanty's been. But Omarion Hampton, for me, a guy who's 6 feet tall, 220 pounds, is gonna run in the 4.4s somewhere. Like they just don't make a lot of running backs like that. So, and with the production that he's had in college, in a Power 4, Power 5 conference, whatever we're calling the ACC these days, sign me up for Omarion Hampton. I'm a big fan.
Absolutely. I wasn't quite as sold on him before last weekend, and it didn't necessarily have to do with the insane game that he had versus NC State, but more so, I think this is something that dynasty managers can really apply to their processes. Especially right now, it's okay to not be fully solidified on a player. It's okay to not necessarily have a take right now, and for me to say, okay, I don't really know a ton of Kaleb Johnson besides the box score stats, but Seth loves him. A guy I follow very closely, Ray Garvin, loves him. I believe Cody Carpentier has already given his praise. Iowa Michael teared down. Like, there are a lot of very sharp people that I follow, and there are certain, I would say inner circle of analysts, people I just named in Dynasty, that I really hold their value in terms of their opinion, to where they're either, and guys like Kaleb Johnson, I'm either saying, look, right now I'm going to trust that these guys know about Kaleb Johnson. Until I see something that makes me, either confirm that or deny that, I'm gonna go ahead and back them. And that's what I decided to do with both Omarion Hampton and Kaleb Johnson. There were two running backs who I was not super familiar with up until the last, 2 weeks. And the more I've gotten to know the both of them through this process, the more I've fallen in love with them. You can start by just their requisite size, and I'll segue into Kaleb Johnson as he's my pick here at 5. But you could start with their size. They fit that mold there. The size-speed combo is there for both of them. They're both good pure rushers. Now, where Omarion Hampton has the distinct advantage would be on the receiving side of things. Again, how much of that is due to the offense? North Carolina, a much more pro-style offense. Iowa, not as much of a passing offense in general. We kind of talked about how Purdue, Tyrone Tracy was a similar thing there. They're just offenses in college that do not utilize the running backs in the passing game. It happens. And Kaleb Johnson can be impacted by that, but his ability as a pure rusher, we're seeing the renaissance of the running back. A guy like Kaleb Johnson is going to find snaps. And right now he's projected to be potentially, the third, fourth running back off the board. And depending on that landing spot, man, Kaleb Johnson could be a top 5 consensus in one QB very quickly. If we knew right now where his landing spot was going to be, so I could see him being one of those guys come, right near the pre-draft season, after the combine, even after the draft. Kaleb Johnson's going to be that guy that everyone's infatuated with. And then people are going to be like, oh, and just now learning about Kaleb Johnson, huh? So I was a little late to the party, but still happy to be just early enough on Kaleb Johnson.
Yeah, it's going to be so interesting because out of all the Theo Greminger asks a question every draft season, like, if you could know the final stats of any player in year one, which player would you choose? And it's such a great question because I think, Travis Hunter would be a good choice. I think Kaleb Johnson would be my pick.
Absolutely.
Because he is just phenomenal to me. And just as a playmaker, I mean, he's all Iowa has really offensively. You saw that in that ridiculous run he had against Nebraska. He's putting up just an insane highlight reel this year. So all it takes, Matt, as we know, is the Raiders to say, we want to feature Kaleb Johnson, the Cowboys to say Kaleb Johnson's the next, running back of our future that we're going to take in the early second round, and it's wheels up. He could also fall in the draft. To me, it's the most uncertain I've been of a top 5 pick, because I love what I see, but I really want to know, how fast is he? That's going to matter.
Yep.
where does he end up getting drafted? I mean, we're so far away from that. So Kaleb Johnson, to me, it does feel, even in my own personal rankings, as much as I like him, this feels kind of high for him because we do have some other running backs on the board, and I'm going to segue into my pick that I like, dating back to last year if they would have came out. But Quinshon Judkins is going to be my pick, and the numbers aren't going to blow you away, especially this year. But he is sharing a backfield with Trevion Henderson, and like I know he didn't have the greatest game against Michigan, but I'm going to choose to focus on the overall body of work. He has 8 touchdowns this year, 9 total touchdowns, rushing and receiving, back-to-back years of over, 1,500 yards rushing in 2022 in his freshman season. And on tape, when you watch him play, and I think I've said this on previous shows that we've done, like he just looks like, and the name Quinshon Judkins, he just feels like AFC North. Throw him in Baltimore. Throw him in Baltimore. I know they have Derrick Henry. Throw him in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. Who knows what they're going to be doing with Najee Harris? But it just feels like a kind of a running back that you're going to want when it start this time of year, November, December, when it's cold. I mean, another one of these big bruising type running backs. I mean, we're talking about a guy 6 foot 220, so again, I'll take Judkins. I have flipped him over Trevion Henderson in my rankings, which is not where I started, but it's where I ended up.